up? We're back with another episode of Season 5 of the Hooswhere Podcast. My name is Chase Minnifield, and we have Max here. What's up, Max?
What's up, guys? Coming to you live from Charlottesville. Happy to be here, back in the old stomping grounds. Got a good one for you guys today.
Yeah, man, we're here in Charlottesville, and we are at the Code Base building, the new co-working space downtown. One of the UVA alumni owns this building, so come check it out. Manages this building, Rob Archer. So thank you for sponsoring us and let us do our podcast here. We have a special guest today, Keven Lindemann. What's up, Kevin?
Hey, glad to be here.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
What are you up to right now? Tell us what you're doing currently.
All right, so I started working at UVA back in mid-January. I'm the executive director of the White Ruff and Byron Center for Real Estate. So we're helping educate students about this wonderful industry of real estate. We're connecting with alumni who are active in the industry, and we're funding faculty research on the real estate industry. So we're keeping very busy. So I've been doing that since mid-January.
Nice. And I'm able to be on the board with you. So
you are.
This is basically my boss. This is my boss right here. But no, it's been a great thing. What are some of the things you're most excited about with what the center is doing currently?
So the center, it's been really fun. We've been doing alumni events around the country. We were up in New York last week, had about 110 alums come, and we had a talk by Alice Raucher, architect at university, talking about the master plan here in Charlottesville and everything that they're doing with the footprint of the university. We're funding really innovative research by UVA faculty members. I mean, things like we've got an engineering professor who is trying to develop a low carbon cement for low carbon pour in place concrete, and that's a big source of greenhouse gas emissions. He's got funding from lots of different places, and actually he's on sabbatical now, but he's up at the White House. The White House tapped him to come in and work with them on that, so we're helping fund his research. We're funding research, another professor who's over at the education school, who's also an economist, is doing research on the impact of student loans on single-family homeownership. So the burden of student loans and how that's impacting people's ability to afford to buy their first house. So a pretty wide range of stuff that we're doing with that, but really interesting and impactful stuff. We're bringing in professional speakers to meet with our students. Companies that are doing really interesting and innovative things in the industry are coming in and educating our students on this industry. We're taking students out to meet with companies, taking them on treks up to DC to meet with companies and trying to find them internships and jobs. So it's been a lot of fun. It's a great industry, and there's a ton of interest, and the kids are super smart, way smarter than me.
Hey, I know one of the things I've been most excited about is the student aspect of it, and really starting to figure out how I can engage students, specifically the athletic students who are not necessarily as knowledgeable in the opportunities that real estate, the built environment world can provide to them. I know one of my biggest regrets, I talk about it, is when I made it to the NFL, not necessarily understanding that I could put my money and park my money in certain places and be in this the real estate environment. I think that's the smartest thing that I could have done from being an NFL type standpoint. So just understanding that knowledge, and that I didn't get that real education at the University of Virginia. So trying to really find, where does that fit? And I talked to some people at the football center and, the athletics place, and trying to get them involved with coming over here to the conferences and things of that nature that we're throwing with the center. So, talk about some of the ways that we can reach students that, might not necessarily even understand this space in this industry.
Yeah, so when you guys were in school, when I was in school, even further back, you didn't really have a chance to learn about real estate at UVA. It wasn't really taught. There was a couple of professors that would teach these classes about real estate just as electives, but most of our alums didn't get educated about real estate while they were here. So one of the things that the center is really trying to do is to promote interest in the real estate industry and help ensure that we're teaching kids what they need to know. We want them to be well trained when they come out of here. So we've got about between the real estate track and the real estate minor, I think we've got about between 130 and 140 students who are studying real estate with us, which is fantastic. You know, the things that we're trying to teach them is about real estate markets, about real estate investing. I mean, your point, Chase, it's a wonderful industry to learn, even if you're not doing it for professional reasons, for investment opportunities and creating long-term value. The industry, it's the third largest investable asset class. So bonds are the largest, stocks are second, and commercial real estate is the third largest. So, you know, there's a ton of incredible opportunities with it. You came in and talked to a group of our students a few weeks back, talking about the impact of technology and how that impacts real estate and the built environment. Yeah. And you know, that was a fascinating talk. And the thing about real estate that I've always really enjoyed, and I've been in real estate my entire career, is that it's reflective of what changes are happening in the broader society. So, you know, you use as an example data centers. Data centers did not exist as a property type probably 20-25 years ago, and now it's probably the hottest property type just because of the demand. Yeah. And so it's reflective of what's happening in the broader environment, and it's constantly changing. I mean, you've got, you know, office buildings, but now you've got data centers, and you've got healthcare real estate, you've got self-storage real estate. I mean, there's just a bunch of different ways that you can play this market.
And there's a lot of UVA alumni that are at the top of this real estate game. That's what I've learned here.
Yeah,
is that
it's amazing.
I must have my blinders on or something.
Right.
I'm in the real estate. I'm in the property management space. And I didn't even realize that my fellow alums are the people that are running some of these largest companies that I'm trying to get in contact with here.
It's absolutely incredible, the alumni network that we have in this industry. That's been one of the truly amazing things since I've been working at the center is recognizing how many alums we have who are doing really important and big things in various parts of the industry. We looked at the publicly traded real estate companies, and I think in the U.S. with the public companies, between the CEO and the board chairman, we had something like 16 or 18 of the public companies are headed by people who were educated here, which again is really amazing considering we've only really started formally teaching real estate as a discipline here, you know, just for the last few years. Yeah. But people have gravitated to this industry, and it presents great career opportunities.
Yes. Where do you think that comes from? If you don't, I mean, you say you've been in real estate your whole career. Like, where does that even come from? Like, not studying it, but wanting to get into it. Like, how does that even happen? Is it like family, seeing other people that were doing it? Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, for me, it was family. My older brother was in commercial real estate, and like probably many college graduates, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I came out. I knew I wasn't going to play in the NFL. So I sort of fell into it. I got an internship at a real estate company, and I enjoyed it. And it's an industry where if you work hard and you work smart, you can do really well. And people won't care as much how old you are or how long you've been doing it. So I think your efforts get rewarded. What's kept me in the industry is that I feel like I'm always learning something new. And real estate commercial real estate, as long as your population is growing, the demand for commercial real estate is growing. So you pretty much always have tailwinds. So people need a place to eat, they need a place to live, they need a place to work, they need a place to shop, to work out, to get their health care. I mean, commercial real estate just impacts everybody's lives, and as long as your population continues to grow, there's going to be increased demand. Yeah. So that just creates more opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, is it fair to say that everything is in the built world in some form or fashion? Like from land to the bricks to, like, it almost seems like, you know, I put together decks for investors and things of that nature, and I try to quantify the total addressable market opportunity, and pretty much, you know, with my technology, I'm trying to handle like the maintenance of buildings. And anytime there's buildings, I mean, and I could even consider like the maintenance of like playgrounds or parks and all these different type of things. I'm like, man, it's just like everything can be serviced in some form of fashion, and what this real estate market or built environment world is able to service. So how do you even quantify like the total market opportunity to even play in the real estate space? Like,
it's a really hard number to qualify. It's in the trillions of dollars, and the reason that it's hard to quantify is that properties don't necessarily, they don't trade the way stocks and bonds do, right? So we could look at the stock market and give you a size of the total stock market, because every day the market's open, every share gets priced, and you can figure out the overall size of the stock market. Commercial real estate, you know, the typical commercial real estate building might only change hands, you know, every 10 years. Mm-hmm. So you don't know what the market value is of a piece of commercial real estate until somebody actually buys that piece of commercial. You can guess what it is, yeah. But and this is actually one of the real challenges that a lot of urban downtown areas are having, is figuring out how much these, you know, mostly empty office buildings are worth now. Yeah. Everybody recognizes, I think, that they're probably worth less than they were 5 years ago, mm-hmm. But so few of them have changed hands recently. We're all just guessing as to how much less they're worth. Is it 20% less? Is it 40% less, or more? So, to answer your question, it's very difficult to size the overall market. What we know is that it's massive. We can confidently say that it's the third largest investable asset class behind bonds and stocks, and it's constantly growing. I mean, again, if your population is growing, then the demand for real estate is going to continue to grow. And you know, if we think about the housing market, we were talking about that earlier. There's a demand for housing that's not being fully met here in the U.S. We don't have enough places for people to live. Yeah. So you know, that kind of dynamic is going to, you know, keep that market growing, which is going to create career opportunities for a lot of people.
Going off that. Switching a little bit to the kind of the program that you guys have. With the program and the kids, is there something like, you know, well, business school, you can pitch your idea for business and you can get funded. Is there some sort of program like that? Because a lot of us didn't play in the NFL like Chase and have a lot of money, you know, millions of dollars to invest in expensive commercial real estate. Yeah. So for the average, you know, kid coming through the real estate program at UVA, is there a way that, or avenue that you guys like, hey, you know, if you guys find a building or a property, like here's some avenues to get it funded, or like if you guys bring us a great idea, we will self-fund. Do you guys have something in place for like the average student who wants to get into that expensive world of commercial real estate?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question, and I promise I didn't plant that question. We had our board meeting. Chase is on the board of the center. We had our board meeting last week, and one of the things that we talked about was starting a fund, a student-led real estate investment fund here. That's something that a number of other schools that have really good real estate programs have done, and it provides just incredible real world opportunities for these students to you know, really analyze investment opportunities, to pitch in investment opportunities. So that's very much at the top of our list. We don't have it yet, but this is something that the board is, I think, universally excited about this opportunity, and it'll give a chance for alums to engage with students too. So alumni in the industry will be able to come in and pitch their own deals, and we'll have the students evaluate the deal, figure out which one makes sense to invest in. And if they invest well, if we've trained them well and they invest well, then the money's going to flow back into the program and just, create more opportunities. So we're really excited about that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, there's no better experience than hands-on experience.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
And then so with a lot of people are saying, the commercial real estate space is not dead, but, as far as borrowing money for these big buildings has become so expensive. Kind of how do you see that? Because on one hand, people are like, well, money's too expensive to build apartment buildings. And on the other hand, we don't have enough doors.
Yep.
And then, like you said earlier, not everyone can afford single-family homes, especially as early as they used to, so they have to rent. So where does that come into play if everyone's saying, hey, it's too expensive to build apartments, but hey, we need them? Kind of where do you see that going?
Yeah, so there are definitely headwinds. Some of them are more real and more tangible than others. So higher interest rate environment makes borrowing more difficult, more expensive. So if you've got a development project going on, it's going to be more difficult to get it financed today than it would have, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, for sure. There is a perception, I think, that commercial real estate is down. That is true of certain property sectors. It's not true across the board. So when we think about commercial real estate, it is self-storage, it's shopping centers, it's regional malls, it's industrial, it's warehouse and distribution facilities, it's healthcare properties, it's office buildings, it's apartments. There's a huge spectrum of what qualifies as commercial real estate, and when I say commercial real estate, that's income producing real estate. So distinct from single family residential. So we would distinguish it from a single family home where someone owns the property and lives there. If they're living in an apartment, they're paying rent to someone.
Yeah.
So they're paying rent to somebody who's likely an investor. So office is very challenging right now, the office sector. I think that often commercial real estate gets painted with a very broad brush because people see these under-occupied office buildings in urban centers. Go to downtown DC, go to, downtown Manhattan, go to Chicago. You're gonna see buildings that are, have a lot of for lease signs there. And everybody's talked to, people who work in these buildings and say we got empty floors all over the place. So without question, office is in a challenging spot right now. The other end of the spectrum, you've got industrial properties. There's an almost insatiable demand for industrial, and a lot of that has to do with companies like Amazon and how COVID people started ordering everything online. I mean, they're 100% occupied and they can't build them fast enough. Data centers that we talked about earlier, 100% occupied. They can't build them fast enough, and they're really difficult to build. I think like grocery anchored shopping centers, I think are doing fine because people still need a place to shop. But if you're talking about office, office is really challenged because of the whole work from home thing that we haven't fully resolved. There's a lot of companies who want people to go back to the office, but they're not yet sort of forcing people to go back. And I would say regional malls are still, they've been in a challenging spot for 10 plus years, and we haven't quite figured out what's going to happen with that. So we've got a regional mall here in Charlottesville, and it's going to turn into, I believe, a Home Depot, and they're going to have the retail and they're going to have a distribution center there. So some of these are just going to get repurposed for other things. The big challenge, I think, is these downtown office buildings, and what are we going to do with them? A lot of people think we could help address the lack of housing by turning them into apartments. Yeah. It's a great idea. It's really difficult to do. Yeah. So we had our first big annual conference last November. We had about 350 people come here to Charlottesville to hear a bunch of people talk. And the breakout session that was most well attended was called The Future of Downtowns. And they talked specifically about this, what's going to happen to all these office buildings. And we had a developer up here from Charlotte who does these kinds of things, and his estimate was that only about 5% of the existing office buildings are suitable to convert to apartments, and be able to do it in a financially feasible way. At the end of the day, you could always tear them down, and you'd have just raw land, and you can build whatever you want on it. But so that's a real tricky problem, I think. I mean, my guess is that the solution lies somewhere between public and then private. I think the local jurisdictions have to create incentives to do something with these properties, whether they're tax rebates or something like that, and then we got to get private investment in there. But for right now, it's a real challenge.
No, that makes sense. I mean, you would think that you could easily repurpose such a great location into whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But I guess it gets deeper into the weeds of how it was built and the engineering and things of that nature.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, if it's a modern office tower, it's very difficult to convert it to apartments. A lot of it just has to do with natural light. So you only have natural light on the perimeter, and so you'd end up with apartments that are kind of long and narrow with only windows on one end. But there's a bunch of other things, like you would need additional plumbing. Each individual unit's going to need its own plumbing and HVAC and all of that, and it's just very difficult to do. When another developer who's on the board with us, they've done, I think, 2 or 3 of these conversions, and he said in hindsight it would have been better and cheaper to just tear the building down and build from scratch. So that's always an option.
Yeah.
It's kind of a sad option because you'd rather see the building repurposed. And it does happen sometimes. We took a group of students up to Washington, D.C. back in October. No, this was in February, and we went, and there was an old government office building right near Union Station in D.C. That had been converted into a Royal Sonesta hotel, and they did a beautiful job at that. I mean, it was a difficult project, but it was just so beautifully located right there near Union Station. So it can happen, but there's not an easy solution to that, unfortunately.
that makes sense. So let's run it back a little bit. So, Kevin, where are you from? Where are you born and raised?
I was born up in the Northeast in Connecticut. I was smart enough to come to school in Virginia.
In Virginia?
Yeah, so I followed all my siblings down here. I don't know how we all ended up.
Everybody ended up here.
Yep.
That's
so followed them down, and then as soon as I came down here, my parents followed me down too. So it was a very nice place to locate. Yeah, no, it's a wonderful place. So I graduated in '91 and. I lived out in Colorado for about 5 years, and then was smart enough to chase the woman who became my wife back to Charlottesville. She was starting at doing her master's in the ed school, and then we've been here ever since. Yeah.
So how has the transformation of Charlottesville changed in your time of being here?
It's remarkable, and it's grown further north. Stretching out past the airport. It's grown further west, stretching out to, Crozet and beyond. It's really extraordinary how much it's grown, but the university has grown a bunch too. I think when I started here, I feel like our first year class compared to what the first year classes are like today, it's got to be almost twice as big.
Yeah.
And so the university just keeps growing, but it's a wonderful school.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people want to go here. They get overwhelmed with applications because people want to come here. And having been behind the scenes for the last few months and met with a bunch of faculty members in different schools, I mean, these students are getting a great education here. I mean, the faculty are absolutely top notch, and it's a really beautiful place.
Definitely is. every time I come back, man, it feels like it's something new that's coming out here.
Yeah.
This is the first time being in this building here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is
He's
it's probably the nicest building in the area.
Oh yeah, by far,
And,
by far. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Obviously 29 is just, you know, what they've done down 29 is crazy since I was in school, and that's only been what, 12 years.
2012, so 11 years.
Yeah, so
12 years,
that's a lot of transformation in that time frame.
Yeah.
All the student housing buildings downtown weren't here.
Brand new.
When we were here, we were all in houses and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
it's been a crazy, just aggressive market, I think, in development for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so what kind of real estate were you doing when you first got into the real estate sector?
Retail. I was
Retail?
doing retail. I was doing leasing, and then got into the more research and data side of real estate. But I think you know the neat thing about real estate, commercial real estate, from a career perspective, is that there are lots of different things that you can do within commercial real estate. Leasing and property management are fantastic ways to learn the industry, you know, from the ground up. You know, there's asset management, there's investment sales, there's the whole financing side of real estate, and then you get into development and you know, the construction of new commercial real estate, and then there's this whole relatively new technology aspect to it. I mean, commercial real estate was sort of dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century, and has been, you know, probably a bit slow to adopt new technology, but that's created great opportunities, like what you're doing with your company. You know, it's a huge asset class. It's at times somewhat inefficient, and that creates opportunities for technology, I think, for people to embrace technology. So I started out in leasing. I worked at an investment bank for a while, and then I've been on the research and data side, and it's all interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fascinating industry.
So what do you do in research and data? Like, I feel like that could be like anything and everything. Are you trying to help people with buying? Are you trying to help people understand markets?
Yeah.
Like, what is kind of
all of the above. I was working for a local firm called SNL, who got acquired by a very large company called S&P Global, who does, you know, credit ratings and things like that. Our clients are mostly on the financing side. So we're trying to help them understand investment opportunities. We're trying to help them understand market dynamics, trying to look around the corner and see what's next. We focused a lot of our attention on the publicly traded companies, and that's actually a great way to, you know, for an individual investor to play real estate is to invest in REITs. REITs are stocks. They trade just like any other stock, and that's a way, if you want to start getting some investment exposure to real estate through the REIT market. There's about 200 publicly traded REITs here in the U.S. So if you decided, Chase, that you think there's going to be a rebound in Manhattan office, there's a REIT that you can buy that's going to reflect that. Or if you decide that, you know, data centers are going to continue to shoot all the way to the moon, there's a REIT that you can buy to do that. You don't have to buy an entire data center.
it's kind of like there's an app for that.
That's right. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So you're doing research and data, but then at the beginning you said that it's hard to get this information to understand the values and the information behind these buildings because they're being held sometimes by private institutions and things of that nature. So how do you even go about trying to provide the most accurate information around whatever you're trying to look for if it's so privately held?
So if you're looking at the public companies have to file with the SEC 4 times a year, and they tell you everything about their operations. If you're looking at individual assets, they do have to make some information known with filing with their local jurisdiction, so you can get like county assessor data and things like we could go on to the Charlottesville GIS website right now and look up any property here. And you could see who owns it and how much they paid for it, how many taxes, how much they pay in taxes, how big it is, when it was built, all of that kind of, that's all public records. There are also, anyone who is involved in the market is going to get information. So brokerage firms are going to know how much space is available at these different properties, because that's their job, and they're going to know what the typical lease rates are in the area. So there's definitely information and data out there. It can be challenging to get, but that also creates the opportunities. Yeah. So if there was perfect information, then there probably would be fewer investment opportunities out there. So what we were trying to do was give our clients an edge.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
which I'm sure they'll pay for.
Yeah. Do you see? Have you seen the trend? They always talk about these big firms are now switching from investing to office buildings to buying hundreds of single-family homes and renting them out. Mm-hmm. Do you see that ever turning into something where it's like, okay, this is now considered like a commercial investment?
Yeah.
You're not buying a single-family home for yourself.
Yeah.
And do you see that is either helpful or hurtful to the single-family consumer who maybe can't afford a single-family? But now it's more like, okay, well, you can rent, have the single-family benefits, but you don't have to have the down payment, the cash, and all that.
So the single families single-family homes have not historically been considered an investable asset class. Now, individuals might buy a single-family home as an investment, but if we're talking sort of large scale, so that's relatively recent. That's the last 7-8 years maybe. It has become huge. Yeah. So some of the biggest investors in the world are now heavily invested in single-family rental properties. Mm-hmm. You are seeing in some markets, they are actually building entire communities with the purpose of having single-family rentals. So usually when somebody develops a new residential community, they're selling lots to builders, and builders are building them and they're selling them to families. Now you're seeing that happen in certain markets where they're actually purpose-built communities for single-family rentals. It's really only happening in certain areas. So like out in Arizona, for example, you've got a lot of land to work with out there, friendly zoning laws, and so I think that trend probably continues, and some of it has to do with people being able to afford their first house. I mean, you got to put the money together for a down payment. You got to qualify, and as long as as long as the financing side is challenging, I think that will continue to grow. I think it has impacted housing affordability in certain markets, but it's only a relative handful of markets. So I don't think that's a widespread impact, but certainly in some areas, probably Arizona, Nevada, I would guess, you're gonna see some impact on affordability and availability. But I mean, these big investors like Blackstone, they're putting a lot of money into the single-family rental market because they saw an opportunity. They saw a mispricing, and they saw that there was going to continue to be demand. And as we talked about earlier, there's a housing shortage in this country, and not everybody can afford that down payment for the first home, and not everybody wants to own their home right away. They want some mobility.
Yeah. So do you see those sectors, like, for example, I have this 100-unit community that I'm building strictly for rentals. Do you ever see that being like a REIT or something investable for the average consumer to invest in part of it? Because essentially you're building a 100-unit apartment building.
Yep.
It's just single family, and technically, I mean, it's a lot easier to get through. There's a lot more data out there on single families, what it costs, price per square foot.
There have been single family rental REITs, public REITs, and what has happened is that they've scaled and become large enough that they become targets for these big investment funds, and they end up taking them private. So, we're talking about the REIT market, and there's 200 or so publicly traded REITs in the U.S. Often, what happens is if there is a mispricing, if the public market is not valuing this REIT, and a REIT is just essentially a portfolio of commercial real estate assets. So if the public market is not valuing this REIT properly, then they will often get taken private, which basically means you have a big investor goes in there and makes an offer to buy the shares at some premium, and then the company goes from being a public company to being a private company. And that's happened a bunch, and that's happened in the single family rental market. Yeah.
It seems like it's almost a dangerous opportunity out there with that, because it can become a situation where, and I think I've seen it on the news, where one company owned like a full block of properties, and then they control the rent for the actual individual, and raising the rents to make it, I guess, unaffordable for people who may be looking to live in those spaces, and there's not competitive opportunities to drop rents and to compete for leases and things of that nature.
Yeah, and that's where it's become challenging for consumers in some markets, where you have one landlord who owns so many of the properties that they have an outsized influence on what the market rents are. So if you owned everything in a community and people wanted to live there, you could charge whatever you wanted. That's been one of the, I think, concerns that people have had, is that in certain markets, these landlords have become so dominant and so big that there's not enough competition in there, and that you need competition to keep pricing, more in line. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Keven, so what did you think from, what if you could start over and you were giving some suggestions to current people who are into this podcast and are like, hey, I want to get into real estate, and you may be a sophomore, freshman, somewhere in school, or just graduated, where would you suggest them to start off if they wanted to have a career in the built environment?
Yep. So a couple of things I would say. One is working for one of the larger companies can be a great learning experience, and can help you build out your network. So commercial real estate is a very relationship-oriented industry. So knowing people and having a shared background, having worked at the same company, can be very valuable. So that's one thing I would say. Two, I would say find a mentor. Find somebody who is willing to mentor you. One of the great things I've found with working with the center for the last couple months is the number of alums that we have who are just thrilled at the prospect of giving back, and they love to connect with students. So if you raise your hand and reach out, I almost guarantee you that somebody's going to come and help you, and that they love the idea of giving back. Three, I would say that there are certain sort of building block jobs in this industry that are just they're great places to learn. So that would be, to me, leasing and property management, I think, are fantastic ways to learn this industry. I had lunch with a fellow the other day who worked for one of the largest public REITs, and he started out in property management because that was where the opportunity was, and he stayed with them for 15 plus years, and new opportunities got created for him. But having that grounding in knowing all of these assets inside and out, communicating with tenants, understanding tenant problems, and finding releasing opportunities and things like that. Those are real building blocks.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get attracted to the real estate industry thinking, I want to be a developer.
Yeah.
Well, there aren't very many successful, 21, 22-year-old developers out there because you've got limited experience. You probably have limited access to capital. You don't really have a track record. I mean, it's a difficult thing to do right off the bat. That doesn't mean you can't become a developer later on, but I think focusing on these building block areas, understanding leases, because that's where the value in commercial real estate gets created, and understanding the properties. Those are great things. Look for a mentor.
Yep. That's all good stuff. Or get involved with the center if you're UVA.
Absolutely. We got plenty of mentors ready for you at the Center for Real Estate.
Nice. You got anything else before we get off there?
That's it.
All right. Well, Kevin, where can everybody reach out to, keep up with you, those different types of things like that?
Yeah. So if you go on to the UVA website and just look for the White Ruff and Byron Center for Real Estate on the UVA website, and you'll see my headshot on there, my contact information, and give me a shout. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
That's good. We got to finish up with one thing. We have a rapid fire questions.
All right.
It's rapid fire. First thing off the top of your head is this or that. Just tell us what you prefer. Hotels or Airbnbs?
Airbnb.
Listen to books or read books?
Listen.
Go to the movies or Netflix?
Netflix.
Cable or stream?
Stream.
Instagram stories or Instagram posts?
See, I need my kids here to tell me about this. Posts. Someone go post.
There you go.
Watch the news or read the news?
Read.
Would you rather start a podcast or write a book?
I'd rather start a podcast.
There you go. And Apple or Android?
Apple.
Detroit pizza or New York pizza?
Ooh. See, this is tough because I had Detroit pizza 2 weeks ago and it was amazing. All right, I'm gonna go Detroit.
There you go.
Yep, Motor City.
And last question: if you were moving, would you hire a moving company or would you get your friends and people to help you move?
I've gone the friend route before, and that's almost cost me some friendships. So I'm gonna hire the pros now.
There you go.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Kevin. It's
All right.
been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.